Hey everybody, it's Matt Stopa again. I'm sorry, it's been a while, about 3 months I think, since my last video. I've been real busy at work and haven't really had a chance to do anything, and I've been pretty disappointed in that because I'd really want to continue right where I left off. I was able to really crank out a lot of videos for a while there. So I apologize for that, and I hope to do a lot more going forward because it looks like things are not as busy in my life. So, that being said, I also want to announce there's a couple of changes. I think I'm going to just try to do whatever is quickest. In the past, in the beginning when I did all those videos, all I did was just obviously hit record and just started typing. And a lot of people, or I shouldn't say a lot, but there was some number of people who said, well, you should really create more polished videos and take your time and all that stuff. And they're probably right. I think there'd be an easier way to learn things, but in this case, I just don't really have the time to do that. So it comes down to I could do videos and have something out there, even though it's not perfect, or I could probably just not do the videos. And maybe there's an easier way to do these things, and I'm just not aware of it yet. But hopefully, I can improve the quality over time without taking something that takes 15 minutes to record and spending an hour and a half editing it. So, with that in mind, there's been a lot of requests for certain topics, and I'm going to try to start with the first one, and that is, in this case, reading a CSV file. A CSV stands for comma separated values, and like I said, it's going to be a lot more raw in terms of just like we're going to create everything on the fly. I'm not going to create it ahead of time and then explain it to you. So I will make mistakes, and that's just going to kind of be part of the deal. The reason the reason that I kind of have kind of pushed myself in that direction is because I watched Yehuda Katz's it's peep code. I forget what it basically it's where they take like the kind of the top guys in the programming world and they follow them around for an hour or two while they program. And I personally, as a developer, found that a lot more interesting rather than just listening to some canned presentation on the way I can do things, because it's interesting to watch somebody's mind work and you try to figure it out with them. And I don't know, to me it's just a lot more interesting. So that's why I'm doing it this way. All right, so that's 2.5 minutes of me rambling about things that are not code. So let's get into it. Like I said, we're going to be doing CSV files, and we're going to start right here. This is where we left off last time. We did this reading files, right? So we're going to do the same thing. I've created my file reading3.rb, and I'm going to rename this to, we'll call it /sample csv.csv. So we're going to read that one line at a time. Then we're going to figure out how we can actually put that into some values. So let's run this after we create a CSV file. First, to do that, we'll say, oh boy, of course I forgot already what I was going to call it, but I think it was sample csv.csv. And we'll just add some values. So we're going to call this, this is going to be the name column. So John, and then, his zip code is that. And what else would we want to know about him? I don't know, his favorite meal or something. Cheeseburger, as in icanhascheeseburger.com. And then there's going to be like Mark, and he's at this zip code, and his favorite meal is pizza, which has nothing to do with lolcats. And we'll also add Paul here, and he's from this totally other zip code. I have no idea where that is. And we'll say his favorite meal is pasta. Okay, so now we have a CSV, and if you're not aware, like CSVs are typically used to export data from something like Excel. So if you have a spreadsheet or something, it's really a stupid format. Not stupid in that it's dumb, but it just doesn't have any brains behind it. There's nothing other than some data that is separated by commas, and that's it. There's nothing else there. So in that sense, it's really stupid. There's nothing to it. Whereas if you take a look at an actual Excel file, there's all sorts of things, relationships between pivot tables and all sorts of ugly stuff that you really don't want to know if you're just like exporting data. And a good example of where you might find this is like a website that gives you stock data. You'll have high, low, close, open, all those types of things. And you'll just get it as this comma separated value. And typically at the top, it'll say something like, name or zip and then food, right? So we'll do that too. Okay, so now we've got that. Now let's try to run our reading3 reading3.csv. And it's saying no such file or directory reading3.csv. So let's specify this directory. Nope. Why is that? Ruby and reading3. Oh, because it's not a CSV. See, I'm dumb. Okay, there you go. That's our file. And you can see the code did exactly what it had done before. So if we go to reading3.rb, it just prints out each line on the file. But that's only so useful, right? Because you may want to manipulate that stuff in some way. Let's say you just want to output everybody's favorite food. Okay, so the problem is that you've got all this stuff going into these lines, but we need something a little bit more sophisticated. This is too dumb for what we need. So why don't we take a hash, or an array of hashes in this case, and say we'll have it, what are we going to call it, users? Sure. So we'll make it an array, and we'll come down here, and we'll take this line, but we're going to do something interesting with it, right? We're going to, so let's assign users.push, so we're going to push something new onto the array, because arrays can function like stacks, right? So essentially a stack allows you to just stick something on the top of it, and that's what we're doing here. So there's actually a video I did on the push method, so you can check that out first if you're confused right now. But that's what we're doing. We're taking users push and we're feeding it this array. Let's stick it in parentheses so it's a little bit cleaner, and we'll stick the braces there. So what we'll say is, for this user, we'll say his name. And this is Ruby 192, so you're able to assign hashes in this way. Name is the key, and the value is going to be line 0. Why is it 0? Because if you remember, name was the first thing that we entered, right? Now let's do what was the second thing? Zip code, right? Zip is going to be line 1, and that's just saying, hey, give me the first element from line 1. Of course, that doesn't really make any sense now that I think about it, because you have to do something else first. So we'll say line equals line. We're going to basically, well, in fact, I'll just change it, right? So array, or R, we'll change it to R. You have to say dot split. That would make a lot more sense, because what you're going to do is say, break me out an array based on the commas. So I'm so used to doing this. Whoopsie. I'm so used to doing this that I didn't even think about that part. But you're going to say, this is going to create us, like I said, it's going to create us an array for this line. So we're going to get one line at a time. And it's going to create an array with each value being separated, since the big separator is a comma. Hence, comma, separated values. So now the first element of the array is going to be the name. So R0. The second element is the zip. And then the last thing is going to be food, which is going to be R2. So if we take that, no right change since last add. I have no idea why it's saying that, but okay, we'll do it again, and it looks like it works. So now I just saved it because I'm just paranoid about saving, but now you don't want to do lines.each. You want to do puts. And we're just going to have a look at the entire hash that we just created. So if this works right, we should see everything. And now that should be in separate elements in this array. So we'll say push users dot inspect, or not push, but puts users dot inspect. So that'll allow us to see the whole array. INSPE. Let me just start over. Inspect. There you go. Okay, we'll exit out of there, and run it again. What do we get? Okay, so check it out. We now have an array, which is signified by that opening bracket, and we have a hash within it, specified by that opening brace. I know this is pretty rudimentary, but As you can see, the first element's name gets name, and zip is zip, food is food, because this is the first line, right? So it's telling us what type of data we're going to be dealing with. And then here, we've got the name is John, zip is 30424, and food is cheeseburger. So now we have something we can actually work with in programming terms, right? So if we go back into that file, let's say, like I said, that we just want to get the zip, right? So let's iterate over that array. So we'll say users.each. In fact, let's do something better. We'll say map. So if you haven't seen how the map function works, have a look at the video I did on it first, and then come back to this. But we'll do map and say, well, doesn't matter, user, and we'll just return user1, which should be the zip, and that's that, and then we'll just puts that result. So what puts does, if you're too lazy to go see the other video I did, all it does is it takes whatever you return right here in this part of your statement and puts it into an array. So it iterates over each element, and whatever you do here, you could count to 10, or you could say blah as a string. It's going to create an array with that number of elements that it's going to return, and we're just going to put that to the screen. So now we should just get a bunch of zip codes. So that's the problem I was running into. I just need to hit quit, and Vim is my favorite, as you can tell. I run into this a lot because I'm actually working on my laptop keyboard, which I don't typically work on. So that's why I'm running into that. So now let's clear the screen so we have a fresh perspective, and hit that again, and you'll see that nothing happens. So let's go back in our code and figure it out. We're saying give us an array of all these elements. I mean, certainly we know users exists. Let's try to actually assign this to something. So we'll assign it to X. Maybe because we're not doing an inspect, I'm not really sure, but puts x.inspect, and there you go. Now we get nil values for each. Let's go back in and figure out why, because that's not right. Oops. Okay. That shouldn't be, right? So if we go in here, we're saying user1. Oh, that's right, because we're looking it up by an array when we shouldn't. We should be looking it up as a hash. Right, exactly. So if we say zip, now we can look up that value. So you'll see. Now this will work, I promise. Sort of. Nope, didn't work. Go back in one more time. We're returning user zip, but I think what we'll find is that zip is actually a symbol. This is, a typical error that you'll run into in Ruby if you're trying to do this. Okay, finally it works. We've got 3 legitimate records, but 4 total. The first column is zip, and then each person's zip. And we have this extra freebie at the end who's not supposed to be here, but that's fine. So if we go back in, you'll see essentially this is how you can deal with the type of file you want. So if you come down here and you're like, well, I don't need zip information, I need the food choice. So create this, and now we're getting everybody's food choice. So if you had you get a data export from somebody's Excel file, they're trying to put together, a wedding or something, and everybody has a certain food preference. Well, this is how you could possibly import all that data and then use it in your program. Granted, probably aren't going to do that too often, but you will typically use CSVs in your program, at least in my experience. There's an awful lot of applications for them because it's sort of a universal format. Okay, that's a long video, but I hope it's helpful. It wasn't perfect, but like I said, hopefully some people get some benefit out of it. So let me know. And, I appreciate everybody's support, and it's good to be back.